The second speaker was going to talk about nanotechnology and agricultural, and when the impacts will be seen by Dr. Caue Ribeiro, who is engineer material in the University Federal Medicine of São Paulo, and doctor in chemistry by the University of São Carlos.
He's researcher at Embrapa, agricultural and cattle raising research in nanotechnology at the agribusiness. He's also made a graduation in chemistry at the Federal University of San Carlos with master's and doctorate students, has made research in synthesis, nanocrystals of oxidous ceramics oxides with nanoparticles, catalytic activities and applications of films and sensors that are nanostructured in projects in partnership with universities. Unesp, USP, São Paulo, UNEF, Pernambuco, UFOP, research institutes. More or less 20 minutes. Thank you for the invitation. I would like to present myself again. I work with Embrapa. This generates a severe problem to understand the good and old question, something is happening. Notice questions can get multiplied. In nanotechnology and agriculture. I remember very well when I came to Embrapa, many countries asked me, what's the sense for an engineer to come to Embrapa? The sense doesn't have to do with common sense. It has to do with money. In spite we don't like agriculture, agriculture represents the figures of commercial Brazilian balance. Agriculture is 10% of the GDP, and in this figure, if we put the agribusiness, which is involved with production of food and distribution of agricultural raw materials, it comes to 33.8% of the GDP. This number is not contaminated by imports. That makes that a good part of our saldo is of agricultural exports. That comes to $59 billion. If we have this saldo, it's good to remind that it is due to the agriculture. We still, if we consider job generation, we can tell that 37% of the population is involved with agricultural business. The civil construction involves 7% of the population. We have to take care. Brazil thought 37 years ago in the creation of this company. And I would like you to know that this company is very successful in research. In these 37 years, we guarantee an agricultural production in a savanna, which is the largest soybean producer in the world. We have 47 units. We have 8 basic research units. One of them is this one here in São Carlos, where I come from, that is also dedicating to materials and thinking how these applications come to agriculture and agribusiness. I asked you 3 questions. In low technological densities cycles, how and when will we do this? There are many people that are more competent than me and have a lot of capacities to bring fragmented and detailed information and will continue to give this information. I would like to give you examples of applications that make you change your mentality about high technology applications in a sector of low technology. The electronic language is one of the technologies in one of the new technologies in Brazil is a classical example. What is that? It is a set of sensors, 10 or 12 sensors that work together, not selectively. They do not detect things separately in a system. They detect many things at the same time. But if I have several sensors that detect many things at the same time in different ways, this means that they can be integrated in an equation system and generate a standard that is recognizable. First components standard, is it called, that may separate not only one property but one behavior. Many times we don't stop to think what we do with our tongue or with our nose. We know what's the coffee brand we want, and the milk brand we buy. We're able to identify this. But why do you buy this coffee? I will have hard time to find out. It has maybe a sweeter taste, or maybe it has a different taste. What makes people like more one wine, more one coffee, or a certain kind of milk? The fact is that two similar coffees, for those who like coffee A and coffee B is similar to coffee A, they will like coffee B. If we can correlate this set of variables in space, we will have a standardization that enables us to mix by knowns patterns of good, juices, good coffees, such as pineapple juices that are good, that may be classified by properties that are not measurable by means of conventional scales. This is what we end up doing. When we do this kind of correlation where when we compare systems with similarities and can extract similar properties from the system. If we compare coffees that are unknown with standards of coffee, this may be done for juices, for wines, for other technologies that have been developed for agriculture, and fine films, for instance, with nanotechnology. We should think nanotechnology not as a Kabbalistic term, but we should think of several aspects of little things, not technologies. This is the big message we have to retain. What is small is important. Sometimes something that is small, something about around 500 nanometers, is much thicker than what we're used. Like a fine film that does not alter organoleptic properties of the fruit or its final appearance, but enables its surface and property is changed. This can also be considered differently. Ketosane is one of those substances, chemicals. It changes the respiration, the breathing of the apple, for instance. It may get rotten in 7 days. Other technologies associated to agriculture that are not so easy to be observed but can be interesting. Some of them is the residue use. They say that like the rice shell is very rich for health, very good for health, and very rich in iron, and it also reinforces conventional polymers. polymers or recyclable ones, enabling that I make a nanocomposite with reject material. I don't know if this is going to be expensive or cheap. It's difficult to know. But one thing I know, this values a product that had no price, which was the waste. So this starts to have a price, so somebody can make money under by producing this rice. Another well-known system, which has a different scale of comparison, are hydrogels. When they're not structured, they can have water absorption loads that are 100 times their own size. 1 milliliter of hydrogel initially, in contact with water, they have swallowed. They have a swollen material. This water can be loaded with pesticides or fertilizers, so the exit of the system will be determined by the time of water exudation. This is a controlled system with a minimum quantity of material and, curiously, biocompatibility. Unfortunately, our computer is not very friendly. He decides to take his own decisions. Let me give you a couple of interesting examples, and because they are of my working area. One of them is the production of fertilizers. We don't have an idea of the impacts when we talk of new technologies in fertilizers, because we do an association with a low technological density. Brazil imports fertilizers. The NPK group is the most important for grain production. In Brazil, we import 73% of all NPK that is consumed in the country. There is no commercial possibility at short term to change this scenario, unless we are able to do things such as looking for alternatives in the materials we already know, enabling that the use of NPK can be rationalized. Many times people ask me if this is logic. I tell them that we have experiences that are not technological but are material, and with some creativity we are able to change a few things. For instance, the agricultural plaster. The use of this plaster started with a waste use of, and now we have figures of 73 million reais that are distributed in Brazilian crops. That's a very significant number in terms of economic balance. That's a good figure. And we're only talking about material application. We have another example which is associated to nano, which is the zeolite used for agriculture as controlled release for ammonia composants. They are materials that are not nanometric, but they have nanometric pores. And in these pores we can put a fertilizer, some of them eolytic ones, that have large quantities, and we can use them in ammonia. Some old experiences made by NASA showed that it's possible to make highly controlled cultures using only zeolite for cultures of grasses, for instance. This is a case that this was made in a space station, for instance. This is alfalfa. Sorry, this is corn. No. This is wheat. We have also less treated by the phreatic level. Micronutrients are also very essential for any culture. They correspond to oxides such as calcium, potassium, magnesium, iron, These are micronutrients. I'm sorry, these are micronutrients. Molybdenum, copper, they're used as salts, but they can be taken as nanoparticles and have interesting advantages. Reduction of doses, and the other advantage is that they reduce dietetic effects in attacking the structure of plants. This is an agronomically tested zinc that brought this kind of result. Proliferating roots, that's interesting, because the excess of zinc determines for corn. That's an interesting thing. It's the productivity of corn can have 4 to 6 stems. So if we do this, usually this is a practical example. It's even more practical because many companies are selling this kind of material in the market. I'm not entering in details about the regulation. This is still an open issue, but apparently the results of phytotoxicity are quite interesting. This discussion should be considered in the future because these materials, they cannot be phytotoxic. Because if they are phytotoxic, they will kill your business and the plants too. What is your guarantee that they're not cytotoxic, or rather two things? This grade of fragmentation is becoming a concern. Dr. Caue is helping us with these works at the Embrapa, and this is one of our concerns. Another subject is the water dispollution. They use titanium oxide in different morphologies for doing that. It presents a very interesting property, generating live radicals with water. This generation can be larger or smaller depending on the oxides, on how it is immobilized to be used in the system. These free radicals can attack toxic components. And if they're used in contaminated water, for instance water with pesticides, the result is very interesting. Here we can see that we can reduce in 350 minutes, about 5 to 6 hours, we're able to reduce half of the concentration of a pesticide in water. Our problem in this kind of technology is how to mobilize the system, generating magnetic cores, enabling that it is captured after a certain time of use, and this interferes severely in properties of the system because in some cases the presence of this magnetic core enables that the system is more efficient than the pure system, but more efficient for pesticides than the pure system with titanium oxide. Other possibilities are its immobilization with fine films, for instance, where we would need colloidal silver or platinum, and so forth that are more effective. These possibilities belong to our research capacity. Another thing is the separation by filtration, which is very common. Nanofiltration means, in practice, avoid that bacteria and virus keep in touch with water and go through a filtering system. So that doesn't mean that salts do not go through it, or non-filtered water have a very bad flavor but is healthy. This is an example of a nanofilter with pores of 100 nanometers. With the typical classification of the systems, 100 nanometers is enough to block this bacteria. What does that mean in public health? Depending on where we are working, it's easier to distribute a filter so a person can drink contaminated water instead of having a water system. Of course, this is a commercial issue. Those who buy this are extreme sports practitioners that prefer to use this instead of using a water bottle. Or the needy ones have also different habits. And how? Well, let's analyze. The feature of nanotechnology makes it difficult to explain one single model of application of technologies for something that we don't know what it is. It's the plurality of nanotechnology that make us have several models. What we expect to make in the plastic market in terms of technology transfer, these two markets are intensive, and they have one addictive, for instance, food addictive, can cost per gram more than kilograms of a conventional food. This picture shows that many times, depending on how technologies fit, certain factors take different weights regarding their technology application. In inputs, the price is determinant for anything. In the market of inputs, we know that when this does not enter, another input enters to compete with that product. So they have to win by having a better price. On the other hand side, the service market is completely unexplored by nanotechnology. Certain things such as interpersonal relationships or standardizations that are associated technology can determine the success or not of this technology. This is reflected in technology inventories we have in the market nowadays. We have several technologies that are of high added value, and within Brazilian markets they produce it where we notice that companies that are able to are stabilized in Brazil, they are cosmetic companies and also input companies. I would like to tell you about the last one, giving you an idea of what we imagine of when. When does a technology enters the market? Some things we have in Brazil, such as alternatives to attract private capital or favorable small companies environment, makes that technologies are ready to reach the market but have no environment to get established. I like this figure here, this picture, because a long time ago in 1940, people knew how to make artificial gas. This has been sold during the Second World War. In Londrina, these vehicles were sold with a reactor of gasogen, and after the war, they became museum objects. After a few years, somebody has discovered to make artificial gas. It's curious, isn't it? This was a technology of 60 years. Maybe we were approaching this moment to remove the cars. Again, I would like to thank for my team. The work is theirs, not mine. And some colleagues. These are the names of my colleagues who work with us, and I would like to thank them and give my contacts, my addresses, if you feel like talking to us when you need. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention.